Have you ever been insulted and reacted immediately? Just one sentence, but it sticks with you the entire day. You think they hurt you, but the truth is, you gave them that power. Hard to accept, but really think about it. The person who makes you lose control isn't them. It's how you react. That moment you feel anger, frustration, the urge to retaliate, is the moment you lose command of yourself. And if you're looking to learn emotional control, to build an unshakable Stoic mindset, then subscribe to Stoic Code right now, because what you're about to hear might change the way you see everything. Because this is the important part. Stoicism doesn't teach you to avoid being insulted. It teaches you not to let it control you. There's a truth that you might not like. You are not harmed by what other people say. You are harmed by the way you interpret it in your own mind. They just said a sentence, but you repeat it in your head dozens of times. You add emotion to it. You imagine extra layers of meaning. And in the end, you are the one who gives it weight. Why does this happen? Because your mind is wired to protect your ego. The moment you feel attacked, you don't think, you react. Reacting to prove that you're right. Reacting so you won't be disrespected. Reacting to protect your so-called dignity. But here's the paradox that few people realize. The very moment you react out of impulse is the moment you lose your true worth. You lose your temper. You lash out. You let emotion take the lead. And from that second on, you are no longer in control. Let's face this truth head on. When emotion flares up, reason disappears. And when you can't control yourself, you are handing your power over to someone else. There's a very simple way of looking at this, and if you can truly grasp it, everything will change. Model. You are like a door. Anyone can knock. Anyone can say something about you. Criticism, sarcasm, even insults. But just because someone knocks doesn't mean you have to open. The problem is, most of us open the door far too quickly. All it takes is one comment that strikes a nerve, and you instantly react. You let it inside. You let it take up space in your mind. And then you wonder, why do I feel so terrible? In reality, it's not because their words were so powerful. It's because you allowed them to stay for too long. Let's look at this another way. Your mind is not just a door. It is a fortress, a place that needs to be defended, a place that defines who you are. But if you open the gates for every insult to walk through, don't be surprised when the inside becomes chaos. This person says one thing, that person gives you a certain look, a negative comment. You grant all of it permission to enter, and little by little, they shatter your peace of mind. This is where the Stoic mindset begins. Stoicism doesn't try to change other people. It doesn't try to make the world a more comfortable place. It teaches you something simple, yet extremely powerful. You cannot control who knocks on your door, but you always control what is allowed to step inside of you. And when you begin to choose that selectively, you aren't just keeping your peace, you are keeping yourself. But there's something that few people admit, and you've likely experienced it too. Sometimes you don't just open the door, you personally invite those insults inside. You're sitting alone, no one is saying anything more, but in your head, the dialogue keeps going. You replay that sentence over and over. You analyze every single word. You ask yourself what they really meant. And then you imagine things that are even worse. No one forces you to do it, but you do it anyway. I've been there, just one little comment, but I'd carry it with me all day. Sometimes, for a whole week. It wasn't because they were powerful. It was because I let them live in my head for far too long. That's when I realized something. Not every door is broken down from the outside. Many doors are opened from within. And once you understand this, you start to change. You stop trying to control what other people say. You start paying attention to what you allow to stay. You learn to close that door sooner. You learn not to feed the negative thoughts. You learn to let things pass through instead of holding on. This isn't indifference, it's discipline, and it's that discipline that keeps your mind steady through any insult. There's a core principle in Stoicism, but if you don't truly face it, you'll just keep repeating the same emotional cycle over and over again. It's not the event that upsets you, it's how you think about it. It might sound simple, but if you truly grasp it, it will make you question everything about how you react to life. Just think about it. If someone's words truly had power on their own, then everyone who heard them would have to feel the exact same way. But that's not how it works. The exact same words. One person ignores them, another laughs it off, another gets angry, and someone else carries them for an entire week. So what's the difference? It's not the words. It's the story you tell yourself about those words. And here's something very few people are willing to admit. The person who insulted you, they probably don't care nearly as much as you think they do. They said their piece and then forgot about it. They've moved on with their day. They aren't analyzing every little thing about you. They aren't thinking about you for hours. But you're different. You hold on to it. You replay it in your mind over and over again. You start to ask yourself, what did they mean by that? Were they looking down on me? Does everyone else see me that way? And then, you don't just replay the words. You add emotion. You add fear. You add thoughts that were probably never even there. A single comment that started so small, you turn it into a massive problem in your head. This is the moment you lose your clarity. You're no longer reacting to reality. You're reacting to the version of reality that you created. And that's why you feel so drained. It isn't because other people are so negative. It's because you're carrying so much that isn't yours to carry. But there's an even harder truth. Sometimes, the person who hurts you the most isn't someone else. It's you. You hold on to words that aren't worth keeping. You feed thoughts that don't deserve to grow. You repeat the things that cause you pain as a habit. And over time, you start to believe that this is the truth. But Stoicism exists to break that cycle. It doesn't ask you to change other people. It doesn't ask the world to be softer with you. It asks only one thing of you: to look directly at the way you are thinking. Because when you change the way you look at things, the way you feel about them also changes. And when you realize this, you understand something crucial. You are not harmed by what happens to you. You are harmed by what you choose to hold on to. And if you can choose to hold on, then you can also choose to let go. So when insulted, what does a Stoic actually do? It's not that they feel nothing. It's not that they're so strong that they're unaffected. They still feel it. There is still that initial flash of discomfort. But here's the difference. They don't react right away. They pause, not a pause born from weakness, but a pause to avoid being swept away. That moment is so brief, just a few seconds, but in those few seconds lies the boundary between control and chaos. Most people react instantly. A harsh word gets an immediate comeback. A disrespectful look sparks anger. A bit of criticism turns into an argument. And after that, they feel regret. They look back on it. They ask themselves, what if I had just been calmer? But by then, it's already too late. But the person with a Stoic mindset, they do it differently. They feel that emotion begin to rise, but they don't immediately trust it. They observe it. They let it pass through them, instead of letting it control them. And in that very small moment, they create a space between what happened and how they respond. And this is where true strength is found. It's not about being emotionless. It's about not letting your emotions dictate your actions. You begin to choose silence when it's necessary, to choose to let it go when it's not worth your energy. to choose to respond only when it truly matters. Not to win, not to prove a point, but to hold on to yourself. Remember this: you don't need to win an argument. You don't need to prove you are right to everyone. The only thing you need to hold on to is yourself, because the moment you let your emotions carry you away, you might win the battle of words, but you have already lost to yourself. There's a deeper reason why you get offended so easily, and if you don't recognize it, you will always be pulled around by other people's emotions. You're not afraid of the words. You're afraid of what those words touch inside of you. Deep down, what really gets to you is that you've tied your self-worth to external things, the opinions of others, their validation, the way society looks at you. When someone says something negative, it's not just a sentence. It feels like a threat to the image you're trying so hard to maintain, a threat to how you want to be seen, a threat to the value you think you have. And that is why you react. Not because they're right, but because you're afraid they might be. But here's the truth that very few people are willing to face. When you need other people to respect you, you've already put yourself in a weak position, because that means your worth is in someone else's hands. They praise you, and you feel valuable. They criticize you, and you feel shaken. You're no longer in control. You are dependent. And this is where Stoicism changes everything. It doesn't try to make others respect you. It makes you not need their respect. Because real worth doesn't come from praise or criticism. It comes from the way you live your life, from the discipline you maintain when no one is watching, from the actions you take every single day, no matter how small, from holding on to your principles, even when it would be easier to let them go. That is something no one can ever take from you. And when you build your worth from the inside, a strange thing starts to happen. The words of other people, they start to lose their weight. You no longer need to react just to prove a point. You no longer need to argue to defend your ego. You just keep living your way. And that is the mark of someone who is truly grounded. They don't need to say much. They have nothing to prove. You have nothing to prove to anyone, because the way they live is already their answer. So when things happen in the real world, what do? Not in theory, not when you're calm and collected, but when you are truly tested, when someone talks about you behind your back, when you're disrespected in front of others, when a personal attack comes out of nowhere, straight to your face. That moment, it's very real. Your heart beats faster. The emotion rises up. You want to react instantly. You want to say something back. You want to explain yourself. You want to prove them wrong. But in that exact moment, you need to remember one thing. You don't have to react right away. That pause isn't weakness. It's control. You let the emotion pass through you first. You don't immediately believe the first thought that enters your mind, because that first thought is usually instinct. It's not your best choice. And then you will realize something. Not every situation requires a response. Not every comment deserves an answer. Some things, the more you explain, the deeper you get pulled in. The more you talk, the more energy you lose. The more you try to win, the more you lose your peace. Other people might want you to react. They're waiting for you to get angry. They're waiting for you to lose control. But when you don't do that, you shatter their entire expectation. You don't need to prove you're right. You don't need to clear up every misunderstanding. You don't have to join every argument. You just need to protect your own peace. Because in the end, what unsettles people the most isn't your comeback, it's your composure. When you don't react the way they expect, they lose their power over you. And while they are still swept up in their own emotions, you have long since stepped away. This isn't avoidance, it's a choice that very few people have the discipline to make, and that choice is what keeps you from losing yourself. Ultimately, let's come back to something very simple. You don't control what other people say. You don't control what they think about you, and you can't stop them from judging you. But there is one thing you always control. How you respond. The moment you understand this, everything begins to change. You no longer try to control the world outside. You start to master the world within. You no longer react on impulse. You begin to choose. Choosing to remain calm. Choosing silence when it's needed. Choosing not to let petty things diminish your own worth. And this is the most important thing to remember. The person who insults you only has power if you give it to them. They can't get to you. Unless you open the door, they can't make you lose control. Unless you hand them that power. When you stop doing that, everything changes. You become more grounded, calmer, clearer. Not because the world has gotten any kinder, but because you are different, and that's when you realize something profound. True respect doesn't come from other people. It doesn't come from their praise. It doesn't come from their validation. It comes from not betraying yourself, from not betraying your principles, from not betraying your own inner peace, from not losing who you are to a fleeting emotion. And when you learn to live this way, you no longer need anyone else's approval, because the way you live becomes the only proof of your worth that matters. If you want to continue building a resilient Stoic mindset, stay here with Stoic Code, because the journey of self-mastery always begins with small steps, just like this one.